The water should have been calm, but I could hear him laughing, ringing out next to me. Even when I'd put him to rest 3 years earlier, it was a bitter silence. The kind that taunts you with visions of love, then leaves you reaching for shadows. We'd vowed this site would be our final chapter, a refuge to grow old in now. I was alone, boots sinking into the wet mossy ground, the air heavy with pine and mud set on writing that taking my life. The crunch of stones behind me brought me out of it. I turned anticipating a deer or a breeze. Instead, a woman wearing a fitted blazer, hugging a clipboard like a weapon, glared me down, her smile too razor-sharp to be welcoming. She didn't know. Me didn't care. To her, I was trespassing on land she believed belonged to her. She didn't know I owned it flat out. She had no idea I'd planted more than aspirations to be here, and she had no concept what I'd do in order to defend the last bit of my tranquility. I'd come at dawn. The lake glimmered like melted gold in the sun rising, lovely but spoiled underneath. My truck rolled to a halt on the gravel road to the clearing, where an ancient cement foundation existed, broken and abandoned. I'd seen this site online years ago, unclaimed and neglected, a secret corner of the world where I might rebuild. But peace, I had learned, was costly. As I swung open the tailgate to unload crates, a voice sliced through the morning. "Excuse me," it said, pleasant but venomous. I turned, squinting into sunlight. She was in her late 60s, dressed for a country club, her clipboard clutched like a symbol of power. "Are you with the tenants the HOA approved?" She questioned, her eyes already blaming. I shook my head. "I purchased this land. It's mine." Her expression grew cold incredulity, changing into something possessive. "That's not possible," she said. "This abuts our greenbelt. The HOA governs the lakefront and buffer zones. Your purchase required board approval." I didn't blink. I produced the deed from my bag, notarized and county stamped. This piece of land was never part of Cedar Grove Charter. It's private purchase legally. No HOA necessary. Her eyes read the document, hunting for a flaw. "There wasn't one. You'll still have to adhere to our design standards," she snapped. "We value uniformity. Any plans for a building must go through our committee." I gave a cold smile. "Good to know. But I'm not in your HOA." She lingered as if leaving would mean defeat, then stalked off. My pulse pounded, not from fear but from the audacity of her claim on my solitude. I tried to let it go, refocusing on my mission, a cabin to commemorate him. Our dream. I cleared weeds, swept the old fire ring off the beach, and attached a windshield on a cedar tree. His favorite, I remained on my property, staying away from the HOA's manicured areas. Still, I was the stranger. On day 2, a guy in a golf cart drove by 3 times, radio blaring across the water. On day 3, a sign materialized beside my trail, community access only. I took it down, it resting it against a tree. By week's end, there was a note on my truck. No letterhead, but a threat. Non-compliance with HOA looks will be fined. My hands shook, not with uncertainty, but with rage. They believed they could wear me down, make me doubt the solidity I'd struggled through loss, debt, and grief. They didn't know I'd been tested, hospital bills, funeral arrangements, a world without him, and still remained. I documented everything, pictures of signs, notes, cart paths. I phoned the county verifying my land's exemption. I constructed a psychic stronghold tempered by the vow I'd given him. Nobody was going to destroy this place. Not time, not grief, not clipboard-bearing strangers. When Patricia, the woman, came back with 2 men, one of whom had a camera, the other a measuring wheel, I did not respond. I allowed them to pace my perimeter, grumbling about easements and setbacks. When they came up to her clipboard, outstretched like a poison offering, I smiled. I'd spent nights poring over Cedar Grove's charter, the 1985 plat, establishing my land's independence. I'd retained an attorney, Nora, without ado. "Speak to your lawyer before you return." I told her. Patricia's jaw clamped shut. The cameraman shifted. I turned toward the lake. The breeze cool on my face, feeling not anger, but power. I wasn't giving it up. Patricia's intrusions awakened something in me, a resolve hidden beneath years of grieving. Mourning had emptied me, but her haughtiness filled the emptiness with resistance. This was not only my land, It was our dream, a sanctuary from a world that claimed him too soon. I traveled to town not to escape, but to equip myself. At the county office, I obtained certified copies of my deed and surveys dated 1985 and 2008. The clerk marking my land's uncommon absence from Cedar Grove, sprawl. At Nora's office, a seasoned land attorney, I turned over my papers. Her eyes sparkled. "They've got nothing," she said, "but they'll overreach till it backfires." She counseled, subtle pressure. "Document. Don't confront. Let them dig themselves in." I nodded, prepared, back at. The lake clouds hid the sun shadows lengthening across the water. I sat on the cabin's rickety porch listening to children laughing from a nearby trail, envious of their careless ease. Mine was bought at cost, lost cancer, took him in months, leaving me to bear our plans in solitude. The following morning, a notice was under a rock near my fire ring. Shoreline access is HOA protected. Take down personal items. I took a picture of it, burned it, and let the ashes blow. Later, I discovered my boundary flags, moved, pushed to reduce my property. I verified them with a GPS app, reset them with double markers, and sent photos to Nora with timestamps. That night, Patricia showed up with Derek, the HOA's condescending vice president, who strolled as if he owned the planet. "We're sending a notice of non-compliance," she stated, referencing visual disruption noise and intrusiveness. I raised an eyebrow. "The flags," she smirked. "Residents report your markers intrude on our shore?" I took out my folder, tapping the certified plat. "The shoreline is mine, verified by the county. Someone messed with my flags. I've got evidence." Derek palled, Patricia blushed. They left Derek grumbling legal review. I wasn't angry anymore. I was surgical. I installed motion cameras not only for protection, but to catch their next move. I planted lies and cedar saplings along the path, his favorites marking my ground with beauty. At 2:47 a.m., the cameras recorded two figures, one with a flashlight, one carrying flags inward, infrared detectors, and sound closed it. I sent the recordings to Nora, who called it property, tampering a legal game changer. I went about as if unmindful weeding, constructing a stone fire ring, each act a statement of permanence. At noon, a county SUV pulled up, Officer Tate. A land management representative said the HOA had said I'd constructed on their land. I presented him with my folder. He whistled at the surveys. "Airtight," he said, commenting my flags provided the HOA with extra inches. Some. "People believe maps warp if they disregard them long enough," he said. He departed, pledging a false report filing. Patricia didn't resign. A bogus notice materialized, requiring me to go to an HOA disciplinary hearing for violations of harmony. I laughed, took its picture, and phoned Nora. "She's impersonating authority." Nora stated, "Log everything." My journal, once a grief outlet, was now a war log I wrote. They wanted to eliminate me. I dug deeper. Days later, a drone flew over my cabin, its camera staring through his old binoculars. I spotted Patricia at the trailhead operating it. I followed its path 10 feet above my deck in breach of privacy regulations, and sent Nora the information gold. She responded, "By the fireplace." I told him in a whisper, "I'm grasping on. This was not Earth, it was us." When the sheriff's patrol car came in, dust whirling, I knew Patricia had crossed too far. Sheriff Boone tired, but polite, said the HOA called me a squatter. I handed him my folder. He read, muttering at the maps. "You're no squatter. This is yours." Patricia had misrepresented to dispatch, stating, "I threatened the community with building a cabin and flowers I requested." He chuckled, submitted a false report, and walked the line, complimenting my cameras. "Grief instructs you to ready," I stated. He did not interrogate, merely tipped his hat. 2 days later, a Candace letter arrived, handwritten on Cedar Grove letterhead, by Patricia complaining about my cabin causing visual pollution. Nora jumped on. Using HOA stationery without permission was fraud. When Patricia came back with 2 badge-wearing women reading a community trust script, I interrupted. "You're trespassing. I have counsel. You're taped." Her mask fell off. "You don't belong here," she spat. It wasn't about flags. It was about me. the outsider who did not belong in her gated utopia. I called the sheriff, naming her to send. She ran her allies, following like scolded dogs. 2 weeks went by. I put in floorboards, each nail a promise. An envelope was left under my truck's wiper, sneaky shots of my cabin stolen from neighbors' yards with notes. I swore outsider. It was a smear campaign. I documented every photo, cross-referencing with my video. Nora upped the stakes. We'd sue for harassment and privacy invasion. Driving by Cedar Grove's clubhouse, I noticed a pink flyer. Who is she? It lied about my land status. Painting me as a threat, I took a photo of it, left it up. Let them expose themselves, a surveyor. Caleb arrived, claiming a random check. My papers stilled him. He was in awe of my markers. That evening, I wrote, "They lie, I stay." The hearing followed a storm, the lake mirror smooth. I wore his favorite jacket with my folder journal and USBs. The Cedar Grove Community Center, crowded cars, lane in perfect Russia stage trial. Inside, the air was cold. Patricia sat at a table with 4 HOA members, her binder ridiculously thick. I ripped up their property owner name card and sat. Patricia's speech droned on rogue development and sanctions. I stood, voice firm, showing my deed surveys, and Nora's sea sand stop. I produced their illicit photos, tampered flags, and forged flyer. Carrying my journal, I said, "Every page documents your failure to wipe me out." A board member, Owen, inquired whether Patricia confirmed my land status prior to sicking the sheriff. She stuttered. Owen sought to dismiss all proceeding against me. Patricia screamed of neighborhood destruction. But the fear of the board dissipated. I departed, stating, "I came to mourn. You turned it into a war. I'm finished mourning, and you're finished interfering." Outside, the air was pure stinging. At the lake, I ran my hand against the flowering leaves. The cabin stood a testament of suffering and perseverance. By the fire, I shut my journal. The battle was won. I spoke to the stars in a hushed tone. I'm here forever. The lake mirrored them back, whole mind.